Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. So, make another video about this. I'm going to try and lift this Jeep just a tad bit more because of realistically 3 inches with 33s is not enough. I'm having some issues I've been ignoring for over the years. This is more of like trying to combat those issues temporarily and cheaply. So, for starters, when I stuff the front tires into the fender, I'll get over to the tire. The fenders are cutting the tire, and I've already cut those fenders quite a bit. So on the back, trying to raise it a bit. All I'm going to do is come to the back here, and you see this adjustable hanger. I'm going to lift the Jeep up by the pumpkin, set the body down on the jack stands, and let the suspension droop here, and I'm going to move this bolt out one space forward to not only give me more lift but also get away from that exhaust pipe because there's a annoying clanking. So 2 birds with 1 stone with that one to try and combat that issue there. That's pretty much it for the back here. Eventually I'm going to change the shock mounts on the rear axle and change the shocks as well as probably change the leaf springs. But I have an idea to do that later down the road to see how well it will ride and perform very cheaply. But for now, I'm going to adjust that and raise the back end up as well as the front. What this thing has on it is what's known as a 3-inch premium lift kit from Iron Rock Off-Road. I've ran this kit on this Jeep for 3-4 years. Haven't really had much issues. Like I said, it's the premium 3-inch, so new coil is a 3-inch lift coil spring, Dodge Tech shocks. These are actually not that bad, other than they are kind of stiff to where they were kind of hard to see. They were ripping this barb pin eliminator bracket from them off by the bolts. So it's bolted and welded onto the axle at this point. As well as the 3-inch premium kit comes with adjustable arms here. In a moment, I'll show you the parts I got to lift this about 1.5 inches in the front. Hopefully about 1 inch in the back. We'll see. But there's 2 issues that I'm going to try and combat here. One is, if you can see here, this is the tire getting cut in from the fender. And these fenders are cut very severely. And I don't really want to cut anymore. And these are 33s. So that's one issue I want to try and kind of mitigate. The other one is that being that this Dana 30 has a truss on it, when you really bottom this thing out, you can kind of see it there, kind of hard to look. You can kind of see there's a line indentation on the oil pan. The oil pan has been hitting this thing, so I want to try and mitigate that, and that's going to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. But also, this thing needs more lift, more travel. In the future, I'm actually thinking about ditching the shock and coil spring for coilovers that I took off of this because there's all Fox shocks on it, and they've been sitting in the corner over that way. I'm actually thinking about repurposing them to this because you can get a coil over bucket where you cut this out and then you weld it into here, and then you have a coil over shock / coil over suspension system up here that I kind of want to try out to see how well it will perform, just swapping that out and nothing else. Keep the short arm kit that's on it and pitch those shocks, get the coil over, and also pitch the rear shocks and get a different, better shock that actually I have sitting over in the corner there too. Because I have 2.5 coilovers and 2.5 bypass shocks that I'm thinking of repurposing coilovers in the front and then the bypass shocks in the back. And just seeing how well it performs. So, with that said, here's where I came to mitigate the problem. On the table here, part numbers up here, I got these coil spring spacers. Like I said, this is temporary. They're supposed to lift the Jeep inch and 3/4. I'm hoping for 1.5 inches, just over an inch. And then these bump stops. I'm putting these on to try and mitigate stuffing the tire, as well as the indentation of the oil pan. I don't know how well these are going to work. These are pretty stiff. Eventually, these are going to be gone in the future. That's the part number for these. These were $40. These were $30. Total $70. I'm going to try and lift the front. Now, because got notes here, I have the 3-inch premium kit. I looked up their numbers, and these are just a starting point reference they give you. My upper and lower control arms are adjusted to here. And actually, that was spot on for mine because I have no alignment issues with this Jeep. It's like beautifully controllable for a straight axle. The 4-inch, same. The 5-inch is slightly different. But since I'm doing like 4.5 inch lift in the front, I'm going to kind of go off of these ones. So I'm going to first start out with not adjusting the upper and lower control arms that are on the thing, and just adjust the track bar as needed, which is not much, and then see how well it does there. So this is going to be cheap lifting the Jeep a slight amount more. And first I'm going to start off with the back, because hopefully it's really simple. I can undo those bolts because I greased them bolts. So hopefully that'll work out. Undo them bolts, move the shackle, put the bolts back in. The front's going to be a little more involved. So let me jack up the rear of this, put the body on jack stands, and then let the axle droop and see where I'm at with that. Okay, after a few hours of me fighting it, I moved the shackles back one bolt hole, which is about what I want to do. These leaf springs are still in good shape. Other than that, when this thing was at its ride height, they had very little arch left in them. So eventually, I kind of want to put some Deaver 4-inch lift leaf springs back here, but I actually want to get them to do leaf spring under axle in order to help counteract axle wrap, and then also be able to use the arch of this shackle more efficiently. If I remember correctly, when I first put those on, the whole leaf spring setup was moved back about an inch just to get it back into the factory location. I don't think this is going to push this much further forward or at all. Having this, it'll push it a little bit forward, but not much for me to matter. I still have a ton of slip yoke left in that drive shaft, I believe. Because right here, I don't think... Yeah, I don't think that... Yeah, I think I'm good there. Doesn't feel like it moved a whole lot out. And this is like full droop the way this is right now, because I had to take the tires off. This is full droop. So bolts are moved to here from here. I had to get a pry bar So here's like some of the tools. Basically, wrench on the end for the nut. I had to use this to break it loose, and I had this pry bar that was actually like wedged in here for me to kind of spring the leaf spring down so I can get the bolt up in there. But it's switched over about what I want. I'm going to put it all back together and see where it sits, and then it's onto the front. But for how this is right now, not too bad. So I'm going to tighten these up. I don't think I need to. This bushing, the way this is bushing set up, it's greased and everything. So technically I don't need to drop the vehicle on its weight to tighten them up, but I might just do that anyway. Lift the axle up, put the tires back on, put it back on its own weight, and tighten them bolts up and see where it sits. So that's what I'm about to do, and then I'll be onto the front. Okay, so here's what's been going on. So the front body's on jack stands. The front shocks are disconnected from the axle to droop it out as far as I can. It is drooped out as far as I can. It's binding on the control arms because of the bushings. By the instructions for these isolator bushings, I get 1.5 inches of lift if I just take this off and put this new spacer on and put this back on, or I get 1 inch of lift by just replacing the stock spacer that's here with the one I have on the bench over there, and I get 1 inch of lift. Considering that I'm having trouble getting this spring out because I can't get it drooped enough unless I unbolt the whole front axle from the truck, and the fact that on the track bar the bolt for this is seized in the sleeve that's in the bushing. I think I can rotate the whole bushing around just 1 or 2 revolutions to get the track bar measured where it should be for a 4-inch lift. I'm just going to replace this with the one I got, and hopefully for a 4-inch lift, keep the stock or these adjustable arms where they're at. I don't think it would adjust them too far out. And then I'll put the shocks back on. This is becoming more of a royal pain than I wanted to, but oh well. So that's seized in there. I will have to figure out how to adjust that. Right now I gotta figure out which bolt I want to take off on the axle in order to get this thing to droop far enough to, I wonder if I just loosen the uppers, take the, I wonder if I don't know. I gotta figure out what would be easier and not cost me or down this thing for a long period of time. I think I'm just going to rotate that out too and then shove it back up in there and call it good. I'm going to replace the stock spacer with the Daystar spacer for about 1 inch of lift, get it to a 4-inch lift up here, and just loosen the front axle. Hopefully I can get it far enough down I can get this out and then put it back in. Okay, so this became a more pain in the butt than I would really want it to be, but here's where I'm at. I had to remove the front drive shaft in order to get the droop down far enough to get the coil spring back on there with the spacer. The track bar is adjusted. I have to just bolt the bracket back up to the unibody. I had to go out and get a pair of spring compressors, which is on this one right now. I gotta compress this one down and then get it off. Pretty much that's where I'm at with it. I'm replacing the bump stop here with these ones, but I'm kind of cutting them down, but I don't know if I needed to or not, because the shocks that are on this thing have their own bump stop. I don't remember. Besides, I can't really get these coil springs on without cutting them down or kind of just not putting it in the pocket. Royal pain. That might be the wrong way to do that. If I'm still touching the oil pan, I'm going to ignore that again. I'm just going to get the spacer on there. The control arms are not being adjusted. So I'm just going to get the other side together and hopefully get the track bar bracket bolted back up. Okay, so the end of this video here, this is a week, maybe 2 weeks after I lifted the front end up an inch. It's actually pretty good. I took it to the dunes with some friends. It actually did pretty well. The alignment's good. I had to adjust the track bar. And I adjust that collar up there to center the steering wheel because it was way off. That's the only thing I needed to adjust. The toe between the two tires, the big bar there, did not need to be adjusted because that was not changed. Just the height of the Jeep was changed. This thing's going to need some more help later down the road. I'm probably going to take this off the insurance this winter and do some work to it. The front drive shaft, the slip joint's kind of stuck. I was able to get it back together. The transfer case is leaking. I probably will do another video. Well, I made one, never released it. I'll probably do another video of completely redoing that transfer case again because there is an issue with that transfer case that I've been ignoring. But other than that, there's things that I'll eventually do to this thing, but right now I'm going to ignore. The front end's grease, everything's adjusted. The spacers on here, I have about an inch lifted up. Control arms. The axle's pretty nicely centered where it is, so I'm going to leave it as is, how is right now. Fluids are good, other than the transfer case is leaking a little bit. I checked it, topped it off. I'll have to go through the transfer case again. Kind of rebuild it again, but go through it. I need to change the planetary. That'll be a whole nother separate video when I get around to it, which will probably be in the winter. 8 months from now. Pretty much, I'm trying to get that thing at least running and driving to use it this year. That's my main goal for that one. This is just check it, use it. Eventually I'll do some other stuff to this one. But as you can see, it's actually pretty level. Lifted the back up an inch, maybe an inch and a half, and the front was lifted up probably a good inch, inch and a quarter maybe. It's actually quite decently level. So there you have it.